Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a super exciting episode on the PT-GT. We're going to be doing basically all of the mechanical things that we need to do to get this car swapped over to a manual. So clutch, shifter, all that kind of stuff. We're going to get it all converted over and ready for this engine and manual transmission to be swapped into the automatic car. It's starting to feel really real now that the car has a third pedal and a little shift lever down there. You guys are going to love this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. Alright guys, we're back with the PT-GT today. We finally got the last piece of the puzzle. We can finally start the conversion process. So I ended up going with a clutch from XTD. This is a stage 2 clutch. It's red, which means that it's good and that it's gonna be fast, right? If it's red, it's fast. Hey, whoa. That is not appropriate. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and start mating everything up, get the transmission bolted up, and start on the conversion process finally in this video. It is about time. So a little detail we discovered, I wasn't sure if the flywheel, it's okay, you can keep going. I wasn't sure if the flywheel for the automatic transmission would also work. With the manual, they are very similar, but it turns out the bolt holes were slightly different. So I have a couple of flywheels laying around, thankfully, for when I did the Eclipse. But you will need a flywheel for an NVT 350 car. Jim's over here having a way with the wire brush, cleaning it up. And then we can throw it on, throw the clutch on, and see how it looks. Really excited that we finally got the new clutch here. It looks good. Everything is fitting up perfectly. Stage 2 is a good step up, and I think this will be perfect for what we're gonna be doing. So now we're gonna go ahead and start on the actual conversion process, which is installing a clutch pedal and linkage and a shifter and, you know, all that kind of stuff that goes along with swapping from an automatic to a manual. So we have the majority of our parts that we're gonna need right here that we got from the donor car at the junkyard. This is the pedal assembly. This includes the brake pedal and the clutch pedal. It's all one assembly that bolts from underneath the dash. So we're gonna be changing the brake pedal as well. We also have a shifter right here, and this is the mount for it. This is gonna bolt to the floor of the car, and then the shifter will bolt to that. And it should fit up in the same spot. We're gonna verify that as well. We also have the clutch lines and the cylinders for the clutch. And then of course the linkage is right here. That is the main stuff. Again, there might be some other things that I haven't realized yet or that we'll stumble upon once we get going into this project, but that's the main stuff, obviously minus wiring and computer, but we'll be focusing on that in the next episode. Whew. So I was originally planning to have the conversion process done by the time I got the clutch. We actually just picked up 2 new flip cars, and this is one of them. This is my new 2009 PT Cruiser Touring. We might make a whole episode on this car, even though it is just a flip car. Let me know what you guys think if you'd like to see a full video on us cleaning this thing up and then reselling it. Also back here, we have even more cars. And the one in the middle, that's the 2002 Dodge Ram we picked up recently. It's also having a transmission issue, ironically. I think it's related to the PCM at this point, but we have yet to verify that. I've been focused on getting these things home and figuring out what all we need to do to get these things back up to snuff and ready for a new owner. Also had to do a few maintenance things to the Eclipse. I'm gonna have a big episode out on that next, but figured I'd give you guys a little bit of an update on some of the other cars here right now. But now it's finally time to make some more progress on the manual swap. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get up under the dashboard of the car. We gotta get the whole pedal thing figured out and see what all we might have to swap or change around to get the new pedals to fit. Where the clutch master cylinder is, maybe if I pop this down, you might be able to see it from here. Yeah, you can see it right there. That hole with the 2 small bolt holes up and below it, that is where the clutch cylinder is gonna go. Normally on the automatics, or at least on this one, there was like a little block off plate that bolted up there. I removed that and used the hole to run some wires for accessories like my gauges and for sound system stuff in the back. I mean, it worked pretty good for the time being, but now obviously we need to use that hole. So I'm gonna go ahead and be disconnecting some of those wires, running them back through, and then eventually when we get the swap finished, I'll make my own new grommet hole for that kind of stuff, or find a grommet that I could run it through. All right, so it was mainly just this little vacuum line for the boost gauge that ran through there. And there is this random power wire for the gauges, I assume. Now the other one is the subwoofer wire. All right, finally got the fuse box through. Looks like there's 4 bolts that hold our brake pedal assembly in. 2 of them, it looks like we can get from up here. One is right there. And then the other one is over next to it, right over here. And then there's 2 more on the bottom. Yeah, there's one there, and the other one right there. There's also that little pin on the brake pedal where it connects to the cylinder. Just gonna try to use some needle nose pliers and pop that off real quick. I also unplugged the connector for our little brake switch, which is right here. Got that unplugged, but I found there's 2 more bolts up above. One right there, and then one a little to the right, so. Here's our whole brake pedal assembly, free and clear, and now we can swap it for the new one. But looking at them side by side, it looks like they're gonna be perfect. Just gotta swap the brake switch over. All right, that was easy enough. Gonna go ahead and, since it's out of the car, clean these up real quick and then start throwing them in the car. The only other thing is we do have to figure out this clutch safety switch wiring, which we will do eventually, but the button is still here for the old one. It's just a little simple 2-wire switch, so shouldn't be too big of a deal. Actually, wait, before we do that, I want to go ahead and throw the clutch cylinder in the firewall real quick. I have it right here. We cleared the hole out so we can go ahead and just slide this in, just in case this already needs to be there before we hook the pedal up. And once we get the pedal in, there's not enough room. Let's throw this in real quick.
20 minutes later.
All right, I got the clutch cylinder down in there. It's not fully bolted in yet. I have the reservoir here. I'll have to figure out a way to mount that eventually. Kind of a pain because the way the OEM clutch line routes, it goes like behind, well, in front of the brake booster and then behind this ABS stuff. It's the only way it looks like it'll fit. So I ended up having to unbolt the bracket for the ABS and stuff, and I kind of bent it down a little bit, and I was able to wiggle my line up through. So now we can go ahead and finish bolting it in. It's really starting to feel real now after seeing that 3rd pedal down under there. Super exciting stuff. So we got the pedals all installed. I have some aftermarket pedals actually I plan to put on them, but for now they will be mixed matched. I'll have a GT pedal on the gas and then those there. So our next step is going to be to go ahead and start taking apart the console, running our shift linkage, and getting our new shifter installed, which should be a little bit of a job. I finally got the whole console out. It was a tight fit, but with the e-brake pulled and the seats all the way back, and I also removed the little lumbar bar control on the side of the seat, I was just barely able to squeeze it out. Very tight, very scary. Felt like I was gonna break the plastic. We're gonna go ahead and start unbolting this whole shifter assembly and get it out of the way, and then we can pull our cable through. The current cable runs under this insulation. We'll have to pull some of that up a little bit. The cable, as you can kind of see, runs up over this like exhaust heat shield from inside the car, and then up here it's just setting there for now. My main concern right now is this is 1 cable and we're going to be going to 2 cables, so hopefully they all fit through the grommet and that won't need modification, but we'll see. We'll cover that if it's necessary. There's a few different things that I want to paint in the car as we install them, and I decided to use this shifter mount as our test and give it a quick paint job first before we start taking things apart. Paint that I use, as you probably saw, I brushed it on. It's actually Tractor Implement paint. I think it's Tractor Supply brand, it's where I got it. Not sponsored or anything, obviously, but that along with a little bit of the hardener seems to work really well. I used a paintbrush on that, but you guys might remember the whole engine bay of this car we actually did with the same paint, except we reduced it a little bit and then sprayed it with a spray gun. And so far it looks pretty good. This was really rusty, so I wire brushed it and then did that. So anything is better than it was. All right, out comes our old automatic shifter assembly. It's all like, yeah, it's literally all plastic. Thankfully, the manual one isn't plastic. that would be really bad. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this insulation out and up over. See if I can pull this stuff up out the way just enough so we can see. Looks like these two rear foot vents kind of are in the way. You can see there's this black, basically ducting. This is for the rear feet heaters. These would go and point out under the seats. This is where the hot air blows through. I remember working with these when replacing heater cores. Massive pain in the butt job, by the way. I do not recommend tackling that. I think we can just pull this out for now. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully we can shove that back in there when we're all done. What I'm seeing here, it looks just like a little sort of rubber grommet, but it looks like these do bolt in. I didn't realize that. So technically we should be able to unbolt that grommet. There should be plenty of flex to be able to get at those bolts easily and pull this old cable out. I got all three of the stud bolts out, but this right here is actually a self-tapping bolt that goes up from the bottom for some reason. I don't know why, but that is a pain. So now we should be able to gently pull this automatic cable out. All right, this aluminum heat shield I was able to just push down, kind of bend down to get the clearance to pull it out, and you know, it bends right back up. It looks fairly similar to the new one, just slightly longer, and there's only one. So now we go ahead and start working on feeding this up through and get it ready to bolt into the car. So the main thing is I gotta aim this so that the links at the end go up in the hole, or at least get close to it. That might be close. All right, boys, we have our shifter cables installed. As you can see, everything is all set and ready to go. There's a little spring from the automatic shifter I forgot about. I did notice that this bushing got a little bit beat up from, must be when it got taken apart. So I definitely want to try to get some new performance ones here soon. The automatic shifter fit in this area, but the manual bracket is a lot bigger. And I found there's these two studs here sticking up with little rubber covers on them. Those are actually going to be the studs we're going to be using to bolt that down. And this little bracket for the console is no longer going to be needed, so just got to zip that out. Also, this is for the park brake safety switch. So basically, when you press on the brake, it would unlock the shifter so you could take it out of park. That's what this is for, and I don't think this is going to be used anymore for anything. So I'm guessing I'm just probably going to tuck this up out of the way or something, or maybe if it's simple, I'll pull it completely out. But this is awesome. We're making huge progress today. Don't need you anymore. So I was kind of hoping that I could steal the shift boot off my automatic shifter and use on the manual, but unfortunately they are completely different design. The reason I wanted to switch them, not so much that this one is broken, but as you can see, it's disgusting. It has what seems to be mold all over it. I think I'm gonna try to bring this back to life. Oh, it's so nasty though. Gave this plenty of time to cure while we did other stuff, and it is pretty much cured. There was a couple of spots that were still tacky on the bottom. This paint is awesome, and it actually turned out really good, all things considered. So I went ahead and took the little rubber caps off of these studs that we're going to be using, I think. I also tried to stuff this back in because I forgot about it. Either way, I'm just going to get my little vacuum out and clean up some of this stuff in here. Let me go ahead and throw the shifter in. So I have one little piece of advice after getting the shifter cables in and installed into this. Before they get put in the car, especially if they're used ones, make sure that they're lubricated and that they slide freely in the little grommet thing that you bolt into the car, because they're going to need to slide probably forward or back or whatever to get in here so that we can put the little pins in, or the C-clips or whatever you want to call them, that hold them in place there in the mount. Mine did not move freely at all, and I sprayed them with some silicone and had to use a combination of going out there and pushing and coming in here and pulling to finally get them to the point where they could have the C-clips put in. But I don't know why these studs are so long, and I don't know why these bolts are so small, but this could take a minute.
One eternity later.
So this little shifter cable bushing, there's normally like a some sort of C-clip or cotter pin there. I can't find it. It must have broken when we took it apart. And I don't have any cotter pins that small anymore. I used to have a kit of them, but I'll probably use like a cotter pin or whatever, or hairpin type key or whatever you want to call it. I think I'm getting the different kinds mixed up, so I'll put a picture on the screen, but I want to replace that bushing anyways because it's definitely going to have some play in it. I left it loose, and I'm also going to wait to put the entire console in because it's going to need some adjusting when we finally put the transmission and everything in the car. But one last thing I noticed is, you can probably see it, this like insulation stuff on the ground underneath the shifter. When I move the shifter around, it's touching it, and there's like noticeable resistance when you try to move the shifter. So I'm gonna go ahead and get under there with a razor blade, trim that, and then we're pretty much done with this, like the main conversion part of everything, which is so exciting and such a relief. All right, that feels a little better. The shifter is completely installed, and we also have a third pedal completely installed. So I can pretend to bang gears in this thing. Woo! And that brings us to the next step, which is going to be actually mating the transmission and putting it in the car, and then working out the wiring, getting that all figured out. It's pretty much ready to go. Planning to build like my own V-band elbow that's going to go around and adapt to the old downpipe, and that will incorporate an upstream O2 sensor bung in it somewhere. I'm not planning to do that with my $100 little Harbor Freight special welder, so we'll see. We'll have to figure something out with that. This is huge though, man. There's an actual shifter in this car. Look at that, third pedal too. That's awesome. So now we got all that stuff done, I want to go ahead and test fit the transmission at least. If everything fits up okay and lines up right, then I'll go ahead and put the bell housing bolts in, and they'll be pretty much all set to go. No, that's a bad idea. No, I'm not gonna do that. Sometimes it's very hard to resist the urge to just have a heyday with this crap. For real though, I really want to finish cleaning up this transmission a little bit more before we put it in the car. Also, another thing is I need to put the dust shield on. The dust shield, I wish I remembered before putting the flywheel and clutch on, because it goes behind the flywheel and clutch and covers up all these areas here, as you know. But I forgot about it, and I'm not sure where I tucked it away. That's just like a pile of PTGT parts, and I've got stuff out and being organized here on the floor while I'm also working on this, so a little bit of a mess. Just a casual box full of pistons. So I need to find that dust shield, and I need to put it on, and I'm probably not going to be removing the entire flywheel and clutch to do that. That would suck. Usually you can either bend them or modify them a little bit to make them fit down in behind. I'll either do that, or it might just fit, and then it'll be fine. Those are the last couple main things we need to do here. Other than that, maybe a few small brackets and odds and ends need to be put in before the engine goes in. So that's where we're going to leave off on the progress on the GT for this episode. Basically, my plan is to break this up into 4 or 5 episodes. Our first episode was actually obtaining the transmission and, you know, kind of forming a plan. And then episode 2, which you just watched, was us doing like the main conversion, the pedals, the shifter, the stuff other than a transmission to get it converted to manual. In episode 3, we'll actually be putting the engine and everything inside the car and then figuring out our PCM wiring, all that. We're gonna cover all that in the next episode. So for those of you who are wondering about PCM and PCM compatibility and any sort of wiring, that's what we're going to figure out next, which honestly I'm excited for, to get everything functioning electronically with the new trans. Then we'll have another episode on getting all the turbo piping finished up and getting the exhaust finished up, all custom fabricated and everything. And from there, obviously there's going to be infinite videos on this car, but those are going to be the main things as far as the swap is concerned. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and if you're excited for the next episode. Also, if you haven't seen some of the previous videos on this over like last year, we did some really cool stuff like relocate the PCM, painted our engine bay, got our big turbo, and some other stuff. I'm gonna make a playlist on the big turbo manual swap and put it in the corner. Speaking of the end of the video, I got a little surprise for this video that I cooked up. Enjoy the new outro, and thanks again for watching, guys.